Mika! 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 Oh my god! What are we doing? I'm John Retton with By the Numbers, Episode 3 on the Paranormal Activity movies. Full disclosure, I don't have the seventh one because at the time that this collection came out, the seventh one wasn't even out. So yeah, didn't have a way to tape it, didn't have a way to just human centipede them together, but this collection of 6 movies is human centipede together. And after Scream was actually well received when I talked about those 6 movies, and I did the recent dive into the Conjuring universe, I decided to dive into a guilty pleasure series of mine. I am well aware that these movies are not particularly good, at least after the first 3. I mean, honestly, there are even elements of the other ones that I didn't mind. But really, had it just been a trilogy, probably would have been better. Now, that being said, let me know your thoughts on the Paranormal Activity movies in the comments, please. Also, ouch, I don't know how Mika did that being thrown around. But nevertheless, the first Paranormal Activity movie. It's listed at 2007. It actually came out sometime in 2009 and was such a rip-roaring success. It was made for a budget of 15 grand. I mean, yes, if you dive into it a little more, there were some reshoots with some more money behind it. But still, that was about 200K in reshoots and other stuff to make sure it was all nice and neat. And still, 215K for a found footage movie with 2 people in, I believe it was the director's house, Oren Peli, I believe it was his house. He, made quite the bit of money on it because it did have an opening weekend of a somewhat paltry, I guess, by standards, by box office standards, 77,873. I didn't do the inflation calculator thing because it's only been 14, 15 years, so whatever. The movie was a fucking smash hit. It just killed at the box office. $107.9 million gross on a 15 to 215K, budget. $193.3 million worldwide. One of the most successful horror movies of all time, considering budgetary and profit and all that. And also, Katie Featherston. Yes. God, she's gorgeous. I wonder what she's doing. I hope she's doing well on projects. First time I saw her, I go, oh, fuck yeah, she was great. She, honest to God, was great. She looks great, too. But also, she was perfect for this particular movie. There was like a demonologist guy. There was a friend of Katie's. There was Mika and Katie. They were played by 2 people named Mika and Katie. Talk about typecasting. Hey, we don't think you can actually remember your names, and we want to make this as realistic as possible, so we're going to give you your real names. You're going to use your real names. It's going to be a shoot, bro. Vince Russo, what are you doing here? Get the fuck away. If you are a non-wrestling fan, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Now, the audience reception. 57% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb. The critical reception, a lot higher. 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, 68 out of 100 on Metacritic, and I tend to side with the critics. Okay, again, full disclosure, these movies, I mean, come on. They're not particularly, something that contains a deep narrative, but Paranormal Activity 1, quite good. And then we get to Paranormal Activity 2, in my opinion, the better of the 2, and that's nothing against the first one. You get to see more of Katie, and that's always a good thing. I really need to check out more projects that she's been in. But she kind of became a bit of a, got the horror label on her. Horror label. Really should have emphasized that better. Horror label. But Paranormal Activity 2, and I was excited. I saw the first Paranormal Activity in theaters. Now, that was after some of the hype had died down. And I saw it, I want to say, at the theater south of me, not the theater in town. This one I saw I believe it was in the Marysville Theater. I live in a town of Marysville, by the way, just so you know, which has 70,000 people in its population with streets that can handle and contain about half that. Nevertheless, enough about Washington State geography. Let's talk about Paranormal Activity 2, out in 2010. Budget of $3 million. They said this was such a smash. Here's extra money, $3 million. I do want to say I like the girl who played the daughter in this. She was supposed to be a teenage daughter, but I think she was like 20 or so during this. And she also made an appearance in a later entrant in this, Paranormal Activity, the Marked Ones. And yeah, $3 million, and you would think, okay, the success of the first one, it'll open 15, 20 million. $40.6 million. Almost virtually locking down the fact that they were going to do a third one. I mean, it would have done a third one even if that thing had, if this one had only made, 15, 20 million in its opening weekend. 40.6 million. Domestic gross, 84.7 million. Okay, so once word of mouth came out that, well, this was good, maybe you could, some people felt it could be skipped. They felt it wasn't as good as the first one. I disagree, and it's my video, so I can talk about this stuff. But it still made $177.5 million. $177.5 million worldwide. Now, that's still saying something. Less than the first one. A little less than the first one, but had a bigger opening. But would the balloon be coming off the rose? We will see. So the audience reception, 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb. Critical reception, almost 10 points higher, 57%. Okay, so wasn't as great as the first one. 53 out of 100 on Metacritic. And then we get the Paranormal Activity 3 that I actually have gained more affection for. I didn't initially like when I first saw it, but this was a prequel showing Katie and Christy as children. Love the kids that they had. They were perfect for this. Hard to find child actors, especially for horror movies, that actually could do well, and I thought these girls did a great job. And the budget was $5 million. They said, okay, here's some more money. It's not the highest budgeted Paranormal Activity movie. That comes up a little bit later. Opening weekend, $52.5 million fucking dollars. And then word of mouth came out about it. Now, I actually like Paranormal Activity 3. I think as far as 1, 2, 3, I do 2, 1, 3. That's how I would rank them. And I will rank these movies at the end, by the way. But it did make $104 million at the worldwide box office. So pretty much, it didn't even, it basically made double what it made, in its opening weekend. Okay, not great, but you had such a smash opening, doesn't matter. $207 million worldwide. 207. That's big. That's really goddamn big. Huge amount of money. Huge amount of money. Audience reception was 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, a little bit higher than number 2. 5.8 out of 10 on IMDb. 6% for the critical reception. 59 out of 100 on Metacritic. So, okay, not too bad. And then, unfortunately, it's all downhill from here as far as critical reception and audience reception and interest. Because $207 million worldwide was the peak. And, Paranormal Activity 3 was back up pretty much to what the first one got at the domestic box office. And then we go to Paranormal Activity 4 that has, this, has this guy covered with the Kinect lights. Remember that? Remember the Kinect? God, that was a bullshit thing. Anyway, I had a buddy that had the Kinect. It couldn't connect very well. Paranormal Activity 4. I realize I say paranormal weird, and now I will never unhear it. I will always be self-conscious. This came out in 2012. Catherine Newton, who has been in the Ant-Man movies and was also in The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, which was really good. She was also in Freaky, which I have yet to see. I need to watch that at some point. Despite the fact Vince fucking Vaughn is in it, and I hate Vince Vaughn. She was in this, and she played the young girl who was besieged by demons, ghosts, obviously. Why the fuck wouldn't she be if it's a Paranormal Activity movie? Again, $5 million budget. Opening weekend, $29 million, so the bloom kind of coming off the rose here. About $11 million less than number 2, and almost half of what number 3 was. That being said, still right there, if they had just pulled it from theaters after that, made plenty of money. It ended up, unfortunately, only making $53.8 million at the domestic box office, $142.8 million at the worldwide box office, so still very successful. But the audience reception, 34% rather on Rotten Tomatoes, and 4.6 out of 10 on IMDb, 23% critical reception on Rotten Tomatoes, and 40 out of 100 on Metacritic. And you know, as much as I like Catherine Newton, and I love that one jump scare where they had Katie snap that boy's neck, God, I wish it was me. I don't have issues. Shut up, I don't have issues. But Katie looked great. It was cool to see Catherine Newton in a role, you know, and see how she would grow as an actress. I mean, seriously, it's weird to think that she was, at the time this was filmed, 14 or 15. She was 15 when it came out. She was probably about 14 when it was filmed, because I think she was born in 97. And just to see where she is doing stuff like Freaky and, you know, The Map of Tiny Perfect Things and Ant-Man, you know, and being in roles like that just a few years later shows the growth that she has as an actress. And she was fine in this. She was fine. You had the creepy kid. You know, he does not like you. What? Who doesn't like me? You'll find out. That was a good line. I enjoyed the jump scares in this. I thought it was pretty good. I laughed at the mother falling from the goddamn ceiling because she's not Lionel Richie. There's a deep goddamn cut. Hey, you didn't expect a Lionel Richie reference on this video, did you? Neither did I, because these things just happen. But yeah, admittedly, it was messy. And how did all those people fit in the backyard at the end? If you've seen it, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. But anyway, we then get to Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones. Woo! Yeah. This one took it kind of, you know, with a more Hispanic setting, and took it in a different direction. And that actually wasn't the worst idea in the world, because I would argue this one actually wasn't that bad. It kind of folded back in on itself and went up its own ass by the end. But I enjoyed this for the most part. I thought it was unique. I thought it was a fresh, you know, coat of paint on it. It was better than 4. Again, nothing against Catherine Newton and Katie Featherston. But it had a $5 million budget. Okay, cool. $18.3 million opening. So yeah, people are starting to get a little bit goddamn sick of this. This came out in 2014, by the way. So there's a 2-year break. Domestic gross is $32.4 million. So it still made money. $90.8 million worldwide. So it was still profitable. But again, going to the well so many times, you poison the well. 34% audience reception on Rotten Tomatoes, 5 out of 10 on IMDb, 39% critical rating, 42 out of 100 on Metacritic. And if you've seen the marked ones, I'm going to tell you about it. If you haven't, I'm going to tell you about it anyway, because the movie's been out for quite a while. I enjoyed the marked ones, but I admit that it has problems. There were issues, like the fact that the kid the one that was the afflicted one kind of reminded me of somebody you would see on a Spanish soap opera. I did like the Hispanic setting about it. I thought that was cool. The way it tried to tie into the others, you had the girl who played the daughter and the second one show up and explain about all this stuff and how people are tied to this demon cult. And then it tried to tie into the first movie, which I thought was fine, and I certainly didn't mind, you know, watching more Katie Featherston. But yes, maybe I will, watch every Katie Featherston project. Shut up. But nevertheless, it tries to tie into that, and then it does a weird demon thing at the end. And that's the end. Except, no, it's not. Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. It came out in 2015. I watched this with friends. I don't remember which friend. I watched this with I believe my first ex-girlfriend, if I remember right. Hope she's doing well. I talked to her recently. Hope she's doing well. She's watching this. But Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. You get to see the activity. Now this, don't get me wrong, had a few good points. I had Brett Shaw, who looks incredible, and Olivia Taylor-Dudley, who looks great. She really looks great. It also tried to tie the stuff where, we get to go to the other side. We get to see Toby, the demon that's been referred to this whole goddamn time. But it also had a $10 million budget, which is twice the amount of budget for any of the previous installments, 3 times the budget plus 1 of the second one, and quite a bit more than the first one. And it opened at $8 million because the bloom was off the rose, and the Ghost Dimension, it was shit. I'm sorry, it was shit. Like, there's no way around it. This was the worst entry in the franchise easily. As far as anything with a linear story and trying to go back in on its own ass and do all this and have more nasty to it. What an eccentric performance. They tried to have more bite to it, and unfortunately, while there were some cool scares, a lot of it didn't make sense. A lot of it just seemed to be badly paced. Had an $18.3 million domestic gross. Ouch. It basically made its budget plus its opening. Ouch. $78.9 million worldwide, though. So it was profitable. It still made money, but the audience did not like it. 27% on Rotten Tomatoes, 4.6 out of 10 on IMDb, 15% on Rotten Tomatoes for the critics, and 30 out of 10 on Metacritic, or 30 out of 10, 30 out of 100 on Metacritic. And I gotta side with the critics, because even though I love Olivia Taylor-Dudley, who looks great, and Britt Shaw, who also looks great, yeah, this didn't work. This didn't work at all. And then the entire thing went back on ice until it was announced that there was going to be a 7th movie. One is largely unconnected to the previous ones, except we get to deal with another demon named Asmodeus. Not Toby, not Tobmodius. There's no facts I could find out about the budget for Paranormal Activity: The Next of Kin that went right to Paramount Plus, because this was in October of 2021. Theaters were still opening back up. Paramount thought, this probably won't be all that successful in theaters. Let's put it right to streaming. Probably smart, because I remember watching this and not hating it, but not necessarily thinking that I need to fucking watch it again. Granted, if they came out with another collection that had all 7 movies, I'd watch it. But this wasn't even a Paranormal Activity movie, except for the fact that they had camera shots and everything, found footage stuff and whatever, and the camera's right in your face and it's doing this. There's really nothing about this that makes it a Paranormal Activity movie, except there's some paranormal activity in it, but it has no ties to the others. And any of the ties it has no cohesive ties, is really how I should say it. Any ties it tries to have, you just can't help but laugh. And taking it in a different direction isn't the worst thing, but don't call it Paranormal Activity, because as we saw with the marked ones, with the Ghost Dimension, that label was tainted, and they probably cost themselves a whole lot more money, a whole lot more critical acclaim by calling it Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin, which is fitting, though, considering that they must notify the Next of Kin for killing the goddamn franchise. There was rumors an 8th one was going to come out. I don't think that's going to be the case. But yeah, there's no information on the budget. I would imagine if this cost more than $5 million, I would be surprised. It did not open up in theaters, and it went directly to streaming. Now, was it a success? I'm sure people watched it. 37% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 5.2 on IMDb. So shockingly higher than the Ghost Dimension, and higher than the marked ones, and higher than Paranormal Activity 4. Amazingly. That critical reception, though, 30% on Rotten and 37 out of 100 on Metacritic. So yeah, Paranormal Activity, by the numbers, is complete. Will they make an 8th one? I mean, they could. They inevitably could. I'm not going to end up redoing the video if they do that, but this this is fun. I may do some more videos like this, but I enjoy the Paranormal Activity movies, even if I admit they're not necessarily great. Let me know your thoughts. And as far as ranking them, let me quickly rank them. So let's go number 2, number 1, number 3, the marked ones, number 4, the Ghost Dimension. No, actually, it'll be, let's see, Ghost Dimension last. Next of Kin up here. Paranormal Activity 4 above the Ghost Dimension. Marked ones, number 3, number 1, and number 2. And there you go. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this show, and let me know your thoughts on the franchise in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.